Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I like to discuss just what the impact of the various Brexit shortages we're experiencing are going to have on this year's Christmas experience. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, a really clever tweet about our current predicament on the world famous plague island of Brexit Britain begins with the analogy that has often been used about support for Brexit. Turkey's voting for Christmas and all that, and links it to the Brexit consequences that a lot of people will really care about. Like I say, Brexit has been described as Turkey's voting for Christmas, not because it is so damaging to so many people, but because it is most damaging to many of the people who most strongly supported it and continue to support it. If people had voted in the 2016 referendum on the basis of what was actually in their interest, the Leave vote would barely have registered. But Christmas is also what might actually wake more people up to the consequences of having left the actually world-beating supermarket right on our doorstep. We have food shortages right now, gas shortages right now, rising energy prices now. Petrol's been a bit of a problem, but I'm going to come on to that, I suppose, in the next video. None of these are a problem in neighbouring countries. This is only a serious issue here. So why aren't people already up in arms? The latest polling figures came out. Labour lost ground, but not to the Conservatives, to other opposition parties. But the Conservatives didn't lose ground in this last week. What? It could be that many people just think these problems are affecting other countries just as badly. Perhaps they think that these shortages are also hitting France and Ireland, Belgium, the Netherlands and so on just as badly. But I don't think that this can explain it for enough people. I think people are hearing about the impacts of Brexit. It's just that not enough of them are seeing it hit home. Like, if you think about the average swing voter, middle class, earns enough to be able to afford all their bills with extra for luxuries, doesn't sweat it when a new bill comes in, maybe even save a little. What impact are they seeing? Food shortages are evident, but it doesn't stop you getting a trolley load of groceries. Yes, you may have to substitute a few items. It's increasingly noticeable that many fresh items are a lot closer to their best before date now, don't last as long, than it was before Brexit. I've seen a lot of people commenting that their fruit and veg isn't lasting as long. I can concur with that for some items, especially noticed it with like satsumas, grapes, potatoes. But although that might be enough to gripe at, it's not enough to demand government action. Rising fuel bills? Sure, but too many of us just accept bills going up without ever thinking of blaming the government. They just blame the energy companies without a thought for the government's role in it all. So why aren't the bills going up around the rest of Europe? Not in proportion to ours, nowhere near. But Christmas is different. See, it's not that the Christmas Day dinner is more important to people than some of the other impacts of Brexit. I think it's more that it just affects more people. The vast majority of those swing voters, in fact, would be annoyed if they couldn't get the Christmas that they'd always taken for granted in the EU. And this tweet does lay out some of the clear problems with it. We can't actually get kill the animals needed for poultry or pork products. We use CO2 for that to stun them. We already had a shortage of butchers thanks to Brexit. That was creating a nightmare situation for the pork industry. We'd already been told that pork and poultry was going to be short this Christmas, before the events of the last couple of weeks. This is on top of that. We have shortages of workers in food processing. So even when we can get the meat, we can't actually process or package as much. Moving on from meat, we couldn't get enough people to harvest our crops either. So fruit and veg was also going to waste. We have a shortage of lorry drivers. I'm going to come to that in the next video for people going, but Phil, there's a thing. Yeah, there's a thing. But we still have a shortage of lorry drivers to distribute this fresh food around the country, which means more wasting of food, because if it can't be distributed in time, it goes off. Fresh food, doesn't matter whether it's vegetable or animal, it just spoils. If you can't get it shifted on time, we only have limited storage capacity as well. We were told that preparations for Christmas food normally begin in summer. We're already about 8 weeks behind in preparations. So regardless of anything else happening, the availability of Christmas food was always going to be affected. Come what may, always. But the fact that the shortages are continued with the government up until yesterday taking zero practical steps to counter it, and then this critical shortage of gas, and then consequential shortage of carbon dioxide, and then the problems with petrol. mean that not only are the shortages inevitable, but they'll be more severe. And I don't know how long, say, the gas shortage is going to go on. For all I know, it could be over in another week. I suspect not. But even that will have set those preparations back even further. So the impact on Christmas, albeit months away still, is inevitable. No way of catching up because we have too little capacity to even work at our pre-Brexit rate, much less go more quickly. You know, the CO2 is also used to keep food fresh for longer. Again, not just turkey we're talking about here. Though I will concede that the last point is unlikely to be the case. Can you imagine if we still had the shortage of gas in 3 months' time? Could you imagine? But even if we have the gas to cook the Christmas dinner, that Christmas dinner is surely going to not look what was originally planned for many of those swing voters. And I focus on that. See, the consequences are, of course, more severe for lower paid workers, people on much lower incomes. Sadly, most people on very low incomes don't vote. You know, if they did, there's no way the government would be cutting universal credit at the end of next week. My partner was talking about that, saying this morning, so why do under 25s not get as much in universal credit? And I sort of thought, well, maybe it's just based on the fact that in theory at that age you could still be living with your parents or move back in with your parents, and they may be on very low incomes. But in reality, it's just because they don't vote. So let's be honest. It's because they don't vote. Their vote's not up for grabs in large enough numbers. So there will be shortage of foods and drinks commonly associated with people's Christmas plans. What there is will be more expensive for those prepared to pay more. So some people will have to pay a lot more for Christmas because of Brexit. The rest will just have to do without. It'll be a good example to highlight another Brexit lie, that people would save on their household bills. Christmas will expose this lie badly. The government will doubtless seek to distract and blame external factors, but then what happens the following Christmas? And it happens again. And these are just problems with our own supply and distribution of food. What about the imports we've taken for granted? When I was growing up, you didn't actually get much imported food and drink for Christmas, really. There was a few items, you know, and most of the food was just the standard British Christmas fare. These days, the shelves are full of delicacies from all around Europe, the sort of stuff never heard of when I was a kid. It'll be back to a few special items. The extra cost of transport, of dealing with the paperwork, which is still not as onerous as it will be once we've actually implemented border checks, but I don't expect that anytime soon. And possibly duties on some items, all adding to the cost of buying things from the EU. Anything like alcohol or other luxury items with a value of over 135 get hit with import duties, which is on top of the VAT that became an issue on smaller items, again, only because of Brexit. So people will increasingly have to forget about ordering from that massive market on our doorstep for gifts. The additional cost can sometimes be more than the item itself. Ordering from the continent now, it's like ordering from America. It's just as expensive and can take just as long. And all of this just with what we know now. We knew that there were going to be shortages related to the loss of freedom of movement. We knew that it would affect the number of lorry drivers, farm workers, food production workers, retail staff and so on. We didn't know that we would be hit by a gas shortage. Now that we have been, we can see just how it's affecting us, but we don't see those same consequences in other European countries. And this is the message that I think needs repeating until people get it. All of these shortage-related problems, every last one of them, is only an issue in this country. Where global supply is a factor, the critical shortage is still only affecting us. If it's global, then why aren't people globally suffering? Why aren't people in France, Ireland or the Netherlands worried about this Christmas? The impact of these shortages is only felt here. The pressures are felt there, but they're being dealt with by their own supply chains, their own governments. You know, organisations are managing it. It's only here where we can't. The out of control price rises are only here. When the panic buying starts, and for petrol it started yesterday, it will only be here. And the reason it will only be here is because we cut ourselves off from the massive market on our doorstep. If any other country did this, they would suffer the same impacts. But no other country has ever done this without going to war. And I'll also remind people that leaders within the supply chain have said that things will continue to get worse and that when they do bottom out, it's not like they're going to go down, bottom out and then get better. They won't improve. They'll just stay there for a good long while before there's any improvement. Now, I don't know how bad this Christmas is going to be in terms of the pandemic. It's easier to see how bad it's going to be in terms of supplies, although the government still have some agency to improve things. You know, the supply chain took a few months from being hit by Brexit until we could see the effects. Even if issues were fixed, and the government have taken one step towards that yesterday, it would take some time to get back to a reasonable normal again. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.